Hey, welcome into the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mac, joined today by my co-host, Lando, and Week 11 is here. We got to run you through the waivers. Now that most of your trade deadlines have passed, we're going to try to help you navigate the most important part of fantasy football from here on out, navigating your waiver wire in crunch time. As always, feel free to like as well as subscribe to this video if you feel that the content you're getting here is worthwhile, as well as leave a comment down below. Maybe you're unsure in your league as to who you should pick up. Put them in there and Landon and I will get back to you. On social media, we are snap_fantasy on all platforms. Lando, I'm going to kick it over to you, my friend. You've got a lengthy list here of candidates for waiver. Who are you going with this week?
This week, the number one priority is the New York Giants back, Wayne Gallman. He balled out this past week, and it seems like now with Freeman on IR, he is the back to own. Gallman looks great. I saw a stat today that Wayne Gallman has many touchdowns as Saquon Barkley since 2019. So
wow.
Take that for what you will, but Gallman here had 18 carries, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had some work through the air, but it's those touchdowns that were good. That's what you need rest of season. Now the only thing is that they are on bye this week. Other byes are the 49ers, the Bears, and the Bills. So keep that in mind when you're adding players. But I still think Wayne Gallman is a great rest of season running back for your team. Next, I've got Damien Harris. I'll go through my running back orders. I've got Gallman, Harris, Nyheim Hines, Gus Edwards, Cam Akers, and Matt Breida. And that's kind of in the order I have. If you really need a running back, I would probably prioritize between Damien Harris and Nyheim Hines, Mac. But who out of that list do you prioritize?
Yeah, that one's a tough one, Lando. I mean, here's another Alabama back coming out and having himself a party. Damien Harris did look good between the 20s. I'm not going to take that away from him. He got to the edge quite nicely. He had some good runs and power schemes. However, we do see the downside of the New England backfield where any one of the running backs can score, and in this case, it was Rex Burkhead scoring 2 touchdowns. So it was nice to see Damien Harris get the volume finally and do something with it. Quite efficient. A really good game for him. If that's a sign of things to come, I think Damien Harris could be a nice add for your fantasy team. However, I'm going to go with Nyheim Hines. And I do believe that Nyheim Hines, this is sort of like the Duke Johnson to David Johnson sort of role. The Alvin Kamara, if you think a couple years ago, to the Mark Ingram. It's that same sort of power versus finesse tandem. And Nyheim Hines does look good when he catches the football. He works well in space, and he's explosive. And Jonathan Taylor's taken some real time to materialize. Hasn't come to fruition yet. I question how Frank Reich is using these running backs, but Nyheim Hines continues to get the bulk of the work. So I think I'm slightly prioritizing Nyheim Hines over Damien Harris. Am I crazy to do that?
I mean, you know that the points could be there. Like the opportunity for those boom games are there from Nyheim Hines. But it's going to be a little bit inconsistent. We saw that Hines was a massive add week 1, and it hasn't really come to fruition since then, really. But you're right. He looks great on the field. Jonathan Taylor truthers are crying right now. We are included with that. And you have to the way they use the running backs in Indianapolis, you need to add this guy if he's available in your league.
Now you have a nice list of wide receivers here, Landon. Under 50, or I guess Deebo Samuel is the only one over 50% owned. He's 54% owned, but these are guys that are available in half of leagues. Deebo Samuel, Sterling Shepard, Jakobi Meyers, TY Hilton, and Michael Pittman, Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, Laviska Shenault. Who stands out on this list for you? A guy that's only 10% owned, Michael Pittman, is the guy that stands out for me.
Yeah, Pittman's been great. We should definitely talk about him. But Jakobi Meyers is everything we thought that N'Keal Harry was going to be this past year. Jacoby's out there throwing touchdowns right now. Like
former quarterback prospect.
Yeah, he's. Are we sure? Are we sure it's not Julian Edelman playing football there? It seems like the New England Patriots just seem to find these guys everywhere. And Jakobi Meyers looks great. I think he should be owned in most leagues. There's a lot of really good wide receivers here, and one that I'm prioritizing is Allen Lazard. We saw Marcus Valdes-Scantling ball out this past week. When you're tethered to a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, having that kind of upside to throw touchdowns, Allen Lazard is a guy that I'm going to prioritize because I could potentially have the confidence to start him throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, like I said, I alluded to, Michael Pittman's going to be the number one ad for me, and you know how much I love Allen Lazard and the Green Bay Packers. But I think Michael Pittman holds more value. USC star, the Colts took him with their second round pick, 34th overall. This dude is legit, man. Last 2 weeks since his return, 84% snap share, 15 targets, 11 receptions, 157 yards, a carry for 21 yards, and 5 of his last 7 matchups are going to be against bottom tier pass defenses. I don't have the faith that I once had in TY Hilton. My faith in Phillip Rivers is somewhat diminished, but I do have faith in Michael Pittman, who at 6'4" is agile, speedy, he's electric, and I'm glad that he's back and healthy because this is a bright spot on this Colts offense that's been somewhat underwhelming when you consider what we thought Jonathan Taylor could be for fantasy football this year. So I think Michael Pittman might be your shining light.
Absolutely right. What do you think about Sammy Watkins for an ad? Do you even consider adding him coming off his injury?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything that points towards Sammy Watkins getting hyper targeted when you look at how much they've been using McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Travis Kelce, Tyree. You know that they're going to spread this around. And now with Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that backfield, there's just, I know you hate the narrative or the saying that there's too many mouths to feed, but I just don't see a world where Sammy Watkins comes in and demands himself a large target share. I think it's going to be few and far between. And something to note, Clyde Edwards-Helaire only has 19 carries since the addition of Le'Veon Bell 3 games ago. It's really, truly eaten into his workload.
Yeah, I still think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a chance to have a second half boom. We saw DeAndre Swift come out and ball out. It sometimes takes half a year for these rookies, the running backs in particular, to be consistent and get the trust from their coaches and get that 3-down running back role like we expected for Jonathan Taylor. So I'm impressed with all these rookie wide receivers. This has been a phenomenal year for rookies. Laviska Shenault is used in a gadget role for the Jaguars as well. He's available on a lot of waiver wires. It depends if you're in keeper leagues, guys. You need to make sure that you grab these rookies and available, and you can have them kept for a late round pick if they are still on your waiver wire.
I will say that Deebo Samuel, he is owned in 54% of leagues, but if he's available for you, I do think that this is a good rest of season stash. The last 3 games that he'll play for you, if you get that far, hopefully you do, watching these videos, 14, 15, 16, he plays Washington, Dallas, Arizona. It's a pretty decent middle-of-the-road schedule, and if you look at what Brandon Ayuk is doing in his absence, quite special. So I would expect that Deebo would come in, be relevant for your fantasy teams down the stretch. If he can get healthy, he'll be great. So I think a really nice rest of season stash for your team.
I do still believe that Deebo is the better talent of Brandon Ayuk. Not to take anything away from Ayuk, but when Deebo is back, he will get the priority and still be an explosive fantasy producer for your team. So you're right. If you've got a spot on your bench, you should definitely add Deebo because he might not be added now that they are just coming off a bye week.
I agree. Talk to me about the tight end landscape here, Lando.
The tight end landscape is terrible. It's rough, Mac. If you didn't have Gronkowski this past week or Jonnu Smith, maybe like you had a rough week for the tight end position. I think at the top of my list is still going to be Jimmy Graham. They play Monday night. I'm not concerned on what he does Monday night. I just think that he's going to be a viable option going forward. Just because it's touchdown dependent. You have to hope for a touchdown in that big frame, the big target for Jimmy Graham. I think that's why you add a guy like that. And also I would say you need to consider Zach Ertz. He just got put on the designated to return from IR for the Eagles. I know he was not great with the Eagles when he was healthy, but he's still a good tight end. And I might need to keep repeating that to myself to make me believe it. But again, the landscape is so bad, so you might as well just throw Zach Ertz on the squad if you're desperate.
It's crazy that you have to convince yourself, or not even say that with a straight face. Like you can't help but grin. But yes, Zach Ertz is still a good tight end. It's been a really disappointing year for him. And if you spent up that 4th, 5th round capital, you're most likely hurt by Zach Ertz so far this year. But given how bad the tight end position was this week, it's a good speculative ad. I'm not against picking up Zach Ertz. It just hasn't been great. But when you juxtapose that with Tyler Higbee, who's making his fantasy appearance what seems to be, 6-7 weeks from the last time we spoke of his name, he's not very reassuring. Jimmy Graham's the most attractive on the list, but his midfield drops have been pretty frequent and not something that I'm overly impressed with. So Zach Ertz is probably a decent ad. I also like Robert Tonyan. I think anytime you can get a pass catcher for the Green Bay Packers who gets targeted by Aaron Rodgers on a frequent basis, and it's not usually the tight end position for Rodgers, but it has been with Tonyan. Red zone upside with that offense is pretty good. So I would go Tonyan above probably all else. Zach Ertz is a good speculative ad.
Totally. Are we thinking, so if you need to stream quarterbacks this week, if you had Josh Allen on your team, there's some interesting options here at the quarterback position.
Yeah, bye week, 49ers, Giants, Bears, and Bills this week.
Yeah, so Jameis Winston is probably at the top of your list. You might need to close your eyes and don't watch the game because he might throw 2 or 3 interceptions.
He looks terrible. I'm not gonna lie. In the relief of Drew Brees, it was hard to watch.
No, but I think with a week of practice with Michael Thomas, I mean, there's potentially now upside for Michael Thomas again. Potentially, it could be good for Jared Cook. The deep threat of Emmanuel Sanders potentially. It's something if you need a big performance. Jameis Winston could be that, Mac.
Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't convinced. It was like I said, tough to watch. Tried to hyper target Michael Thomas, throwing into double, triple coverage it looked fairly rusty for Jameis Winston. I would actually consider maybe taking a shot on Tua Tagovailoa. It's funny, you watch the Dolphins game, Tua looks pretty polished. I mean, some of the throws he makes, strong. He got lucky with one, should have been interception, complete to Adam Shaheen. But you look at the box score and it's like 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, it's nothing special, but he looks good. And so far he hasn't made too many mistakes for a rookie quarterback. So I'm willing to take a shot on Tua out of the rest of these guys. Secondly, probably Derek Carr. I'm not convinced that Jameis Winston will be a good start for you.
Even against the Falcons, a defense and a coordinator that he's familiar with from his time in Tampa.
Yeah.
Still no.
I mean, look, we've seen Jameis Winston be quite great for fantasy football in poor starts. I mean, he starts out with 1 or 2 picks. Jameis will keep throwing. But they lost Traquan Smith. They lost him last game to an injury. We'll see how that one goes for the rest of the week. Michael Thomas has been pretty much a ghost since his return. and the whole Saints offense hinges on Alvin Kamara. So we'll see what Jameis can make happen. I'm, like I said, not convinced that he is ready for this role.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming by. If you have specific questions for us, make sure to get into our DMs at snap_fantasy. I do want to remind everyone that support for the Snap is brought to you by Manscaped. Make sure to use SNAP20 promo code for 20% off plus free shipping. That's SNAP20 promo code for 20% off plus free shipping. They are the best in below the waist men's grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels.
Have a great rest of your week. Keep your eyes peeled for some YouTube segments this week, and we will see you guys later in the week for podcast on Thursday, as well as our regular show on Saturday, as well as, if you're new to the channel, every single Sunday we do a start sit from 11 a.m. till about game time Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see you on any of those segments. Good luck.